Anglesey in North Wales plays host to the third meeting of the season for the 2019 Teekay Couplings Production GTI Championship, one of the most dedicated hot hatch championships, one of the best in the business, the Volkswagen Golf GTI. Well, the Mark 5 and Mark 2 contenders are here, but so is the rain and so are the overcast conditions. It's been wet in qualifying this morning and the weather has carried over to the start of race 1, so tyre choice and setup has been an absolute nightmare for the drivers. To head on to the grid for the start of race 1, here's how they line up in both Mark 5 and Mark 2s. Simon Hill takes pole in Mark 5s ahead of James Colburn on the front row, from Martin Walsh, Paul Blackburn, Simon Vercoe, John Beale, Adam Hance and James Howlison. The top 10 is completed by Peter Elliston and John Maudsley, from Dawn Boyd, Ryan Say and Brett Wallace. And then back in the Mark 2s, it's Peter Milne on pole position in the class, from Tim Hartland, Chris Webb, Spencer Beale, Luke Hardman and Ian Webb. So, 20 cars on the grid, all set for the first 20 minutes of racing here as the lights go out and they slither away from the line. It's a good start from pole position from Simon Hill. We ride on board with Adam Hance. That's Simon Vercoe's bright blue Golf in front of him. And going round the outside as they go through turn 1, that is John Beale in the multicoloured car. Down towards the banking for the first time. Looks as though Adam Hance will take the outside line, trying to outbrake both Beale and Vercoe. As we say, tyre choice here is an absolute nightmare. Do you brave it out on slicks and hope that the weather gets dry? Or do you stay on the wets and hope that the rain continues to intensify or the circuit doesn't dry up as quickly as you'd hoped? Drivers heading their way through church for the first time, tippy-toeing their way through the right-hander. The conditions are rather tentative, bit of contact there between John Maudsley and Ryan Sayer. As they head now through the school kink for the first time, and it is Simon Hill, the current championship leader, who heads the way from the defending Mark 5 champion James Colburn. We now ride on board with Adam Hance now, 4th place. Simon Vercoe just ahead of him as they chase down the rest of the leaders into Rocket for the first time. There is John Maudsley going around the outside of James Howlison into the second part of Rocket, but the number 2 holds firm on that line. And now trying to get into the action also is going to be just behind the Peter Elliston. Maudsley continuing to go around the outside line where the grip is favoured. But Howlison might have track position here. Elliston will try to follow him through on the right, and through the right-hander at Peel. And now down to the bottom of the hill through the corkscrew, and rather than turning right onto the coastal circuit and back to the pit straight, we're using the international layout this weekend, which means it's through the left-hander at 180 degrees and down the Tom Price straight. You can see how murky the conditions are. Wipers ablaze, lights ablaze on these Golfs as they head into the hairpin for the first time. And again, in the wet conditions, you usually take the wider line off the racing line where the rubber tends to be, because off the line, that's where you find the more grip. It's usually known as the karting line, and most of the drivers using it to full effect. Simon Hill also using his Golf to full effect. He's pulling away at a canter by almost a couple of seconds at the end of lap 1. The leaders try to follow suit. There's Martin Walsh in 3rd position, chasing down Paul Blackburn as they head across the line for the first time. So Hill leads. It's Colburn in 2nd place. Paul Blackburn making a welcome return to the championship after he returned back at Croft. And again, going deep into the final corner goes Tim Hartland, but once again, it's the line which finds the most grip and the most confidence for the defending Mark II champion. Brett Wallace isn't too far away from them still. Hasn't made that much progress. I've noticed that Spencer Beale's dropped off a little bit in the process as they head into the banking once again for what I'm sure is one of the last few times we're in the closing stages of this rather tentative first race. Pete Milne has pretty much led from start to finish from the front row of the grid. And Tim Hartland has tried on once or twice on a couple of occasions to get through, but just hasn't been able to find that race-defining pass or race-defining moment to make his way through. And as a result of it now, he's found himself under threat from Chris Webb for most of this first encounter. As they head through School Curve and up towards the top of the hill at Rocket once again. And time is running out for Chris Webb. He needs to try and make this move now, otherwise he'll have to be reserved for 3rd place. Just tippy-toeing their way through the second part of the Rocket complex. Chris Webb is still hounding the back of the defending champion. He wants title number 3 this year. The only way he's going to do it is to make a pass on the man that currently carries number 1. Nothing doing at Peel. They're trying to sprint down towards the bottom of the hill into the corkscrew. Again, wide line from Hartland to try and find the grip. And a tight run off the corner seems to have benefited Chris Webb a little bit, but all this is allowing Pete Milne to try and escape up the road. Meanwhile, in terms of escaping up the road, this man really has just absolutely spread eagled the field here in race number 1. Simon Hill revelling in these wet conditions and seemingly knowing exactly where to find the grip and exactly which line will get him the fastest around the International GP loop. And he's been utterly dominant so far this year. Picked up 2 wins at Silverstone to start the year. He then also picked up another victory at Croft with a second place. The other win was taken by Martin Walsh as a result. So he's picked up 3 wins and a second place so far at the beginning of the season. He's now on course to pick up win number 3 here in the first race at Anglesey. He really hasn't been challenged at all, has he? And possibly if he keeps up this form for the rest of the year, it's looking good for his 2019 Mark V title chances. If he does elect to continue next year and contest the full season in 2019, I'm sure it might only be a matter of time before he comes home with number 1 on the door. He's going to come home on this occasion up towards the checkered flag for the final time, out of the last corner and onto the pit straight. It'll be an utterly dominant victory for Simon Hill, who collects race 1 here at Anglesey in very wet conditions. It'll be second place for Simon Verco eventually. There's Luke Hardman crossing the line to finish the race in the Mark IIs. And here is the final result. Simon Hill from Simon Verco, a 13-second winning margin, with James Colburn in third, Paul Blackburn fourth, and Martin Walsh rounding out the top 5 from Hart, Beale, Howlerson, Maudsley and Sayer. And Elliston and Boyd round out the top 12 in the Mark 5s, and Pete Milne was the fastest Mark II home from Tim Hartland.
You deserve that.
Firstly, congratulations on obviously making the podium, guys. Pete, well done on coming first, and Tim, well done coming second. Obviously third, unfortunately, broke down coming round. Fans screaming your name, I love it. So quickly talk me through, how was that round for you there?
That was a game of 2 halves, really. I think I got a decent start, and then I thought, yeah, I'm smoking the backy on this one. And then, of course, Tim, who's always strong and helps make this championship what it is, was right on my heels. And then it was just trying to not make mistakes, stay on the tarmac, and just drive my own race. And it came good. Yeah, I had a couple of moments, but managed to wrestle the thing back on the tarmac. And yeah, I'm very pleased, very pleased.
Tim, how did you find the track out there? Because there was that last-minute burst of rain.
Yeah, it was really, really slippery. I mean, in fact, I think it was probably a question of who made least mistakes, because I don't think there was a lot of difference between Pete's pace, my pace, and Chris's either. But each of us kept making mistakes, and Pete clearly made less than the rest of us. So yeah, it drove really well.
Well, after rather adverse conditions in race number 1, it's thumbs up for the weather for race 2 for the Teekay Couplings production GTIs. The surroundings are much clearer, much brighter, and the circuit is bone dry, which means these guys will be able to push as hard as possible, with Simon Hill and Simon Verco lining up on the front row together. Who's going to get the whole shot towards turn 1? Cars met their way towards the grids. We confirmed the lineup for race 2. Simon Hill and Simon Verco, as mentioned, on the front row, from James Colburn and Paul Blackburn on row 2. Then Martin Walsh, Adam Hants, John Beale and James Howlerson round out the top 8, ahead of John Maudsley, Ryan Sayer, and then Elliston, Boyd and Wallace complete the Mark 5 runners. Pete Milne is on pole position by virtue of his winning race 1. He starts alongside Tim Hartland with Chris Webb, Spencer Beale, Luke Hardman and Ian Webb. So a full quota of 19 cars, all set for another 20 minutes of action. The red lights are up, and Paul Blackburn jumping the start there, a little too eager to get away. Lights finally go out, and he's almost stranded on the line as Adam Hants and co power past him on the run towards turn 1. But immediately it's a cracking start for Simon Verco and the bright blue Golf, getting the best of race 1 winner and championship leader Simon Hill around the outside at turn 1. And now we ride on board with Adam Hants, with Martin Walsh looking to the outside. Back to the bumper camera through the banking for the first time. But it is Simon Verco who leads the way out of the hairpin towards Church Corner for the first time. They sprint towards the right-hander. We see now side by side between Paul Blackburn, who has got underway under his own steam, battling with James Howlerson on the inside line, but I'm pretty sure that a jump-start penalty is going to be looming large for him, courtesy of the stewards. Now, side by side for the lead, and also side by side for 4th and for 6th position. It is 2 by 2 on the sprint towards the top of the hill at the Rocket Complex. We're on board with Adam Hants. It's almost 3 abreast into the complex. They all try and sort themselves out on the exit. It's Adam Hants on the inside of John Beale in the 46, who fancies the outside line. Behind them, John Maudsley disposes of Martin Walsh, and he might come with a threat from James Howlerson on the run down towards the right-hander at Peel. So an action-packed first few corners here in the second race of the weekend for Production GTI. There's a full race yet to go to see if we can shake out who is going to be at the front of the field come the checkered flag, which is a long time away. As we say, dry conditions here today. Now the track is bone dry, which means we're going to get some fantastic lap times, and also the guys will be able to push as hard as possible and really go for the race victory. Down towards the hairpin for the first time at the end of the Tom Price straight, and that exiting stage right, that was Ryan Sayer locking up the rears and off the road. Thankfully he's hopefully kept it out of the barriers, but a bit of a scary moment there for Ryan as he throws himself down towards the back of the field early doors. So Simon Hill back into the lead by the end of the first lap from Simon Verco in second place. James Colburn's there in third. And this quarter are still scrapping amongst each other, with Hartz ahead of Maudsley. And then we've got Howlison and Paul Blackburn, who was almost certain, as we mentioned, to get himself a jump start penalty for just getting away a little too keen at the end of the red light sequence. It's the hairpin for the second time, on board with Adam Hartz. And now they make their way up towards Church for the second time. So the top four trying to break away here as early as possible. As we see James Howlison just trying to make a move on John Maudsley here as they turn their way through Church Corner for the second time. A little further back, we'd like to be in the background. We see Martin Walsh there back in 9th place. Bit of a poor start for him. He'll try and recover as best as possible. And up to 10th already is Dawn Boyd. And the brakes now. There is our leading trio. But an impressive start for Simon Verco. And what's interesting to note is that Simon Hill, who dominated in yesterday's first race in somewhat adverse conditions in the rain and the overcast weather, is not pulling away as much as he was before. It looks as though that Simon Verco and James Colburn in the dry conditions seem to have just as much pace as he does. There's Paul Blackburn in the 83. I'm sure his main task will be, knowing that he jumped the start, just try and push as hard as he can and try and negate whatever time penalty I'm sure they're going to give him as a result of that jump start, as the pack heads back down the Tom Price straight. By Pete Milne as they turn their way into the second part of Rocket. So a brilliant battle off the restart between these two, and Chris Webb has managed to push himself up into 3rd place. So the race 1 winner in these dry conditions, not as quick as he'd hoped to be, and now off the staring in the face of a possible non-podium finish in 4th place. As now Chris Webb already in the dry conditions, up to the bumper of 2nd place man Spencer Beale, and looking at a great chance to pick up another place here. You know, Spencer's got a rookie plate, doesn't mean he's any less talented. Down towards the hairpin. This is a fantastic run so far for Spencer, but Chris Webb has sailed straight onto the back of the number 64 as they turn out through the hairpin on the restart. There's not that much left to go in this race, only a few minutes left in this second race of the weekend. There is Tim Hartland already on the restart, showing how much pace he's got as he continues to lead. Diving up the inside with a big lock up into the bus stop goes Chris Webb. And up the inside for 5th position goes Luke Hardman at the expense of Ian Webb. So as one Webb gains a position, the other loses one. And that is now Chris up into 2nd place, whilst Ian drops down to the tail of the Mark II field in 6th. Back at the front of the Mark V, it's still Simon Verco ahead of James Colburn in 3rd position. But Simon Hill now finding a little more advantage here on the restart. Seems to have put a bit more temperature and pressure into the tyres and brakes under the safety car. And he immediately is trying to sprint up the road to maintain his 100% winning record so far this weekend. He wants to make it 2 from 2. At the moment, he's going the right way about it. Into the Rocket Complex once again. Simon Hill, of course, you'd have to say, in his early season performances so far in the opening couple of rounds, and what he's already achieved so far this weekend, you have to say that this early stage in the championship, he is putting himself into contention to be the favourite for the 2019 Mark V title. Doing everything right at this point as he heads out of the corkscrew hairpin, down the back straight towards the hairpin once more. Simon Verco, as much as he's trying to keep pace with the race leader, I think is a little too preoccupied with James Colburn on his tail for 2nd place. So out of the hairpin, and down towards the final corner. What will be one of the final times, as we are late in the race here. That safety car's taken off a little bit of time throughout this race. I think we're going to go towards the last lap here as John Beale is under threat from James Howlison, diving up the inside into the final corner. And now onto the pit straight as the checkered flag flies and Simon Hill picks up the victory. So a strong performance once again under the safety car and in that race from Simon Hill to fend off Simon Hill and Simon Verco as Tim Hartland picks up the victory in the Mark IIs. And here's confirmation of the result then in that second race. Simon Hill from Simon Verco and James Colburn, from Adam Hartz and John Beale, James Howlison and Martin Walsh from Dawn Boyd, Brett Wallace and Peter Elliston completing the top 10. The rest of the field coming through in order with Ryan Sayer, and then Mark II winner Tim Hartland, and Chris Webb, Spencer Beale, Pete Milne, Luke Hardman and Ian Webb the finishers. Another brilliant race, 2 down and 1 more still to go at Anglesey.
Simon, top step again. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, very happy. Didn't have the greatest to start, so I just got too much wheel spin off the line, and Simon, who was to the right of me, he got past and led into the first couple of corners, and then so I had to go deep to the outside to try and cut back, to try and get up the inside for the run round church, and fair dues to him, just because I just got the nose in, and he did give me a car's width, which was just enough to try and sneak it in there, so he was very fair to do that, and afterwards he said, I just didn't know where you were, so I thought it was best to leave just a car's width just in case. So, yeah, great guy for doing that. But it was a case of just carrying on as normal. But the safety car then came out to bunch us all up again. Just tried to make a good start after that. Haven't really had much experience of doing rolling starts, so it's a case of just try and do it as well as you can and be quick and try and catch them when they were napping. So while they were weaving warming their tyres, I just went and they were sort of mid-weave, so that was it. I was gone. And they just kept it that way, and before I know it, checkered flag was out.
Well, thankfully, not only has the weather stayed dry here at Anglesey, but it's also improved further as the sun has started to blaze in the sky for race number 3 of the weekend of the Production GTI Championship. There's John Beale looking to line up from a personal best 5th position on the grid. Let's see what he can do from the 3rd row. So as the cars met their way around to the grid, the grid is set by the results of race 2. So Simon Hill and Simon Verco on the front row together from James Colburn and Adam Hartz, then John Beale and James Hallison alongside Martin Walsh, and then Dawn Boyd. But Peter Ellis is 9th alongside Brett Wallace, with Ryan Sayer, John Maudsley and Paul Blackburn starting at the back of the grid. Then Tim Hartland is on pole for Mark 2s alongside Chris Webb, with Spencer Beale, Pete Milne, Luke Hardman and Ian Webb completing the 19 cars set to take the start. So, can Simon Hill make it 3 from 3? Can Simon Verka get the jump like he did in race 2? Or can anyone else possibly go for glory? Lights out, and race number 3 is underway here at Anglesey for Production GTI. It's a nice even start from the first 2 rows as we ride on board again with Adam Hartz, taking the outside line through turn 1, side by side with James Colburn. But at the front, it is going to be Simon Hill who takes the lead into the banking for the first time. Verco's 2nd, Colburn slots into 3rd, hugging the inside line. And then firing out the other side. There's a good side-by-side battle further down the back towards the bottom of the top 10 in the Mark 5s between, looks like, Dawn Boyd and James Hallison. Hallison has the line, but Dawn Boyd will try and break it out around the outside. There's almost a little rub of wheels, but so far, as though Hallison has the advantage. So Hill leads, Verco 2nd, Colburn 3rd, Hartz 4th. John Beale does well to hold the station in 5th position. Then it's Martin Walsh in 6th place, James Hallison 7th. They all crest the rise at the top of the hill. A big lock up from Ryan Sayer. I think he's been having brake problems all weekend because he locked up and went off at the beginning of race 2. He's done it again, this time locking an inside front wheel under braking for Rocket. And now he's in the Mark 2, so Chris Webb getting a great start and already trying to get up the inside of Brett Wallace as they turn their way through Peel Corner for the first time in race number 3. Down through the corkscrew for the first time. Top 3 trying to make a dash for it at the front, leaving Adam Hartz to scrap away with John Beale and co for 4th place. Wide on the exit of the corkscrew there was Ryan Sayer in the background. He's having an eventful first lap as ever. So now let's see how the battle lines are about to be drawn, because Simon Hill now, remember, he dominated race 1, wasn't able to pull away as much in race 2 until after the safety car period, thanks to the incident between John Maudsley and Paul Blackburn. So let's see what he can do in race 3 here, and whether or not he's found a bit more pace in the dry to be able to dominate this race and complete the hat-trick. Well, still John Beale remains ahead of Adam Hartz from the start. Adam Hartz has lost a spot from what was 4th place on the grid, so John Beale looking to take another personal best finish if he can. Now through turn 1, again this brilliant bumper camera Adam Hartz carries, 2 onboard cameras, the other one of course sits inside the cockpit where we get to see Adam at work. And now diving up the inside for a position goes Peter Elliston, that's on the inside of Ryan Sayer. So that puts him now towards the base of the top 10. A good start also for Dawn Boyd. That's put her around about 8th or 9th on the road. And Brett Wallace is having a stronger start to this 3rd race than he has in previous encounters. He's still keeping Ryan Sayer and co in touch in front. And still just flashing through the shot there was Chris Webb, who continues to lead in the Mark II class. So there goes Dawn Boyd in the British Motorsport Marshals Club supported number 42. Dawn was a marshal herself, and of course she's doing it for the Orange Army. Great to see her running so competitively in her first season in Production GTIs. Just keeping 5 Elliston at bay, although he might find himself under threat from Ryan Sayer. The 2 of them almost go side by side on the exit, but Elliston's got enough drive off the corner to remain in front of Ryan into Peel Corner. Still as they turn towards the corkscrew. There's no way through just yet for Elliston, but I'm sure he's trying to size up Dawn for a pass here as they head through the corkscrew at the bottom of the hill, winding its way onto the Tom Price Straight on the International GP Loop. A left-hander at the bus stop to end yet another lap. John Bill's doing a fantastic defensive effort here. He wants his personal best finish. He wants this 4th place, but Martin Walsh wants the points to go with it as well. He wants that place just as much, if not more. Here's our race leaders, and Simon Hill, believe it or not, throughout this entire race, still hasn't shaken off Simon Verco, who is looking pretty racy here already as we come into the closing stages of this 3rd and final race of the weekend. Out through the right-hander, onto the back straight for the final time. And it looks as though Simon Hill might have this in the bag unless he makes one small mistake. But credit where credit's due, a fantastic drive and a fantastic performance from Simon Verco to keep the championship leader within his wheel tracks. As they come through Rocket for what I believe should be the final time. Simon Hill is doing everything he needs to, just again parks the car on the exit on the apex, just to prevent any chance of Simon Verco trying to sneak up the inside into Peel Corner. So each result that Simon Hill scores, he gets closer and closer to potentially getting towards that 2019 Mark V title. He's driven superbly all season so far. He's only finished off the top step of the podium once, and that was at Croft at the expense of Martin Walsh, but he is lining up now for his 5th victory, or even 6th victory in 7 races, which is absolutely phenomenal. So he will go into the second half of the season surely as the man to beat. Of the hairpin for what I believe is the final time. We'll know that if we get the checker flag on the pit straight. James Colburn has tried to close in 3rd place, but he'll have to settle for a podium a little bit further back. But into the final corner comes Simon Hill. And despite the pressure of Simon Verco, it's not going to be enough, I don't think, up towards the checker flag. Indeed, it does fly for Simon Hill. He creates the perfect hat-trick. 1, 2, 3 this weekend at Anglesey. Simon Verco, a brilliant result in 2nd place. There's confirmation of the result with Hill and Verco P1 and P2. Then Colburn, Beale and Walsh in the top 5 from Hance, Hamilton, Elliston, Sayer and Boyd. And then the rest of the field comes streaming through. Wallace in 11th, and then Tim Hartland wins the Mark IIs from Luke Hardman, Spencer Beale, Pete Mill and Ian Webb. With no finish for Chris Webb, he'll lose valuable points to the championship. A brilliant weekend, and here's Lindsay with our winners.
Congratulations, Tim. This is 2 out of 2 wins today, so Anglesey in the dry must be very favourable for you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I won, but the thing is that actually Chris Webb overtook me off the line and he pulled a gap on me and I wasn't reeling him in at all. I was trying as hard as I could. And then he broke down about 3 laps in, so that kind of ruined the race. So I feel as though, yeah, probably morally this is Chris's win actually, but anyway, it is what it is, and happy to have another win.